In session 1, we talked about God's dream for you to become the best version of yourself. Nobody wants to be a second-rate version of themselves. So why do we find ourselves doing things that don't align with our best selves? Have you ever noticed that sometimes you know something is wrong and you know it's bad for you, but you still desire it? Not everything we desire is good. Or have you noticed that sometimes you know something is not good for you and you don't want to do it, but you find yourself doing it anyway? The problem is we enjoy things that don't help us become the best version of ourselves. This is part of our fallen nature, the disordered desire that exists within every man and every woman. St. Paul wrote, "I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do." What was he saying? I want to be the best version of myself, but sometimes I find myself doing things that don't help me become the best version of myself, even though I don't want to do these things. We don't always choose the best version of ourselves. We don't always choose virtue. We don't always choose self-control. So let's take a look at what gets in the way, how we get so easily deceived, and what's holding us back. One of the things you and I have in common, we both want to be happy. We're all on a quest for happiness. You have an enormous desire for happiness. This desire is an incredible gift, and God has placed this desire within you for a reason. We all do certain things because we believe they will bring us happiness. Sometimes the things we choose bring us happiness, and sometimes they don't. We've all done things that we thought would make us happy, but that in fact left us feeling empty, unhappy, miserable, used, deceived, or even worse. We want to help you avoid this in the future by teaching you how to choose wisely the things that will truly bring you happiness. We all want to be happy. The question is, how long do you want to be happy for? If you just want to be happy for an hour, take a nap. If you want to be happy for 2 hours, go out for a great meal. If you want to be happy for a whole day, go shopping. I'm not going to stand here and tell you shopping doesn't feel good. Shopping does, but it doesn't last. If you want to be happy for a whole week, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a whole month, take a vacation. Go down to Australia, you'll have a great time. If you want to be happy for a whole year, inherit a fortune. But the truth is, you want to be happy forever. The good news is, God wants you to be happy forever too. God created you for happiness. And not only does God want you to be happy, He wants to play an active role in your happiness. He doesn't just hope for your happiness from afar. He wants to help you find that happiness. When it comes to happiness, the culture wants to sell you a poor substitute, pleasure. God wants you to be happy. The culture wants you to be a slave to pleasure. This is another reason to rebel against the culture. The world tries to distract and confuse us with pleasure. Our culture says that pleasure and happiness are the same thing. It's another lie. Pleasure is good and beautiful. And in the right context, God wants us to experience much pleasure in this life. But pleasure is not happiness. What's the difference between pleasure and happiness? Pleasure cannot be sustained beyond the activity producing it. Let me give you an example. When we eat, we feel pleasure. If you stop eating, the pleasure stops. That's why we don't stop eating, right? I mean, 75% of the time when we're eating, we're not actually hungry. Our little stomach says, "Excuse me, I'm full down here." We say, "You shut up, this tastes good." And we just keep eating and eating and eating and eating. Why? Because we like the pleasure. And pleasure cannot be sustained beyond the activity producing it. But happiness is different to that. Happiness is sustainable. I'll give you another example. I come home from work one day next week and it's my day to work out. But I don't really feel like working out, so, I have to make a decision. Work out or plant myself in a big recliner in front of my 127-inch idiot box with a six-pack of beer and a 300-ounce bag of potato chips. The choice is mine, right? Now, suppose I force myself to work out, even though I don't feel like it. The thing is, whenever I get done working out, I'm always glad I worked out, even if I had to force myself to do it. Happiness can be sustained beyond the activity producing it. Happiness is more than pleasure. So don't settle for an empty life of pleasure. Choose more. Rebel against the culture of pleasure and start actively seeking the happiness God created you for. So what will really make you happy? Happiness is the result of right living. Honesty leads to happiness. Dishonesty leads to misery. Caring for others leads to happiness. Selfishness leads to unhappiness. Patience leads to happiness. Impatience will make you miserable. There are right and wrong ways to live your life. The culture tells you that there is no right and wrong. The culture says that what's wrong for you might be right for me. This is nonsense. Hitler's way was wrong. Mother Teresa's way was right. Some things are right and some things are wrong. But how do you know what is the right thing to do? At a basic level, you just know. One of God's great gifts to you is conscience. Your conscience guides you in the way of right living so that you can celebrate the best version of yourself and live your best life. Very often, we say, we don't know what we should do. But usually we're lying to ourselves and to others because our conscience is telling us the right course of action, but we are trying to ignore it. Our regrets are born when we ignore our conscience. But there may be a handful of times in your life when you legitimately don't know what the right thing to do is. It is for these times, more than any other, that God has given you another of His great gifts, reason. I had dinner last week with some friends, Mike and Samantha. They've been married for 2 years and have been trying to have a baby, but have not become pregnant. Their friends have been telling them about all sorts of fertility treatments, but they don't know if these treatments are part of God's dream for them. Mike and Samantha, more than anything else, just want to do the right thing, but they're not sure what the right thing to do is. You see, this is a highly specialized and complex area of science and morality. To get to the truth, they are going to need to study this issue. This is a perfect example of why God gave you a beautiful mind. You have the ability to study an issue, to search for the truth, to think things through, to seek out God's way, and to act on the truth you discover. If you want to make great decisions, just do the next right thing. Don't worry about what you have to do next week or next year. Just do the next right thing right now. 5 times or 10 times or 50 times or 100 times a day. If you do the next right thing often enough, you will live a life uncommon, a life that is rich with inner peace and happiness. So do the next right thing.